Sri Sachidananda Sadguru Sainath Maharaj Ki Jai. Sri Sai Satcharitra, an insight. Episode 149. My humble prostrations at the lotus feet of our Sadguru Sai. By the divine grace of Sai, an attempt has been made to translate the gist of the divine discourse of Sri Ramanathan brother telecasted in Sai TV. This is purely done to share the glory of Sai and his divine teachings with more insight to the aspirants. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnuhu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahmam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. In the previous chapter, we listened to the significance of Nam Japa and its glory as professed by Sri Sai Baba. In Sri Sai Satcharitra, chapter 27, 84th verses, Sri Hemat Panji says, God's name, when chanted with devotion, bestows greater benefits. But even if the Lord's name is chanted routinely, that grants blessings. How is this possible? Let's recall a Leela associated with Nana Sahib Chandorkar. Once, when his wife came to Shiradi, she was massaging Sri Sai's feet. To see women doing Pada Seva to Sri Sai Baba itself is a rare scene. Sri Sai Baba gave such permissions only under extraordinary circumstances. It would be whenever he wanted to grant his unbounded grace to that woman as she deserves it. Similar blessings were bestowed by Sri Sai Baba to Kaparday's wife, and we will be discussing on that at the end of this chapter. Nana Sahib's wife's mind was ever engrossed in the Namasmaran of Sri Sai Baba's name, irrespective of the work she performed at home. But her mind was not fully inclined to the chanting, and it would be wandering upon various matters and the work she is involved in. So, to her, Sri Sai spoke these beautiful words. Mother, you are grinding, but not all of it is turned to flour as it is not grounded well. Some of it is coarse and others are ungrounded. Nana Sahib's wife couldn't catch the purport of this statement of Sri Sai Baba. Later, she went to the Vada and conveyed this incident to her husband and said that she couldn't follow Sri Sai Baba's statement. Nana Sahib Chandorkar has observed the Namasmaran practices of his wife, hence he could immediately comprehend the meaning of what Sri Sai Baba professed. He explained it to her. You are always remembering the holy name of Sri Sai Baba, but whenever you chanted it with complete devotion and remembrance of Sri Sai Baba, your sins and bad karmas are grounded well like that of a grain turning into a fine flour. But when you chant the name of the Lord mechanically with your mind crowded up with various thoughts, then the sins are not got rid of, just like the grain getting coarsely grounded or partially grounded. If you want these coarsely or partially grounded ones to become a fine flour, then you need to chant the name of Sri Sai with complete devotion, is the message delivered by Sri Sai Baba through this parable, he said. The significance of chanting the Nama Japa is highlighted in Bhagavatam by a story, and this has been a very popular one to quote, which we can recall now. This is a story of Ajamila, who has done various evil actions throughout his life. He had a son who was christened as Narayanan. When Ajamila was on deathbed, he called out his son's name as Narayana. So, by simply calling out his son's name, he became free from the reactions of sinful life. Indeed, he has not only been freed from the sins of this life, but from the sins of many thousands of other lives. He has already endured proper recompense for all his sinful actions. If one atones according to the directions of the Shastras, one cannot become free from sinful reactions. But if one chants the holy name of the Lord, or even a glance of such chanting can immediately free one from all sins. The same thought has been indicated by Sri Sai Baba to Nana's wife, that constant remembrance of the Lord and repetition of His name ceaselessly will grind the sins of the person without any trace, as that of the grain grounded into a fine flour, and the one chanted without complete attention on the Lord will lead to coarse grinding, which means partial annihilation of the sins, and over the years, by constant practice, those will also get grounded into a fine flour. Listeners, please don't be of the opinion that one can lead an unvirtuous life and finally, before passing away, if he chants the Lord's name, then he can be redeemed. This is completely impossible. Ajamila's story is a metaphor. He had the grace of the Lord. That's why he even could call out his son's name, which was one of the holy names of the Lord. Saints say that at the time of death, usually fear engulfs the person's mind. Thus, the one who has never had the practice of chanting the holy name of the Lord cannot remember the Lord's name at that crucial hour, as it is necessary to perform continuous sadhana, thereby creating an impression of God's name on the subconscious mind and going beyond the stage of body awareness. Only then a person can, without any efforts, remember the Lord's name at the time of death. Whereas a person who was always engrossed in material things and had been a slave to negative energies cannot remember to chant the name of the Lord at the time of death. Chanting the Lord's name will grant astounding benefits. In this connection, let me recall the life of the great sage Valmiki. Valmiki is not his birth name. His original name was Ratnakara. He was born to sage Prachatesa. At a very young age, when he went into the forest and got lost, a hunter who was passing by saw Ratnakara and brought him up as that of his own son. He trained him to become a skilled hunter. Then he grew up into a young adult and got married, had children. As his family became big, he was not having sufficient income to feed them, so he began to loot the money of the villagers whenever they passed by the forest to go to another village. One day, the great sage Narada, while passing through the jungle, was attacked by Ratnakara. As the great sage sang praises of the Lord, he could see some transformation in him. Then he asked him the reasons of stealing. The hunter said he was doing it for the sake of his family. When the sage Narada asked him to find from his family members if they can also partake the sins committed by him, they refused to take it. Thus, to relieve him from all the sins, the sage gave him the sacred name of Rama and asked him to chant it, whereas Ratnakara could only chant it as Mara, as that was the name of one of the trees in the forest. But he was doing it very diligently for years in a meditative posture, so the constant repetition of the word Mara, Mara, Mara sounded as Rama, and the god accepted his chanting and granted him the honor of Brahma Rishi. Thus, significance of chanting the divine name of the Lord is portrayed in all the holy scriptures, and its benefits are immeasurable. The Rama mantra is commended as the Taraka mantra. Tyaga Brahma Maharishi states that there are two major sects in Hinduism, and they are Saivism and Vaishnavism. The Vaishnavites chant the holy mantra Narayana, while the Saivites chant the divine name as Namah Shivaya. So, if we take the second syllable from Narayana, which is Ra, and the second syllable from Namah Shivaya, that is Ma, and combine both, we get the holy name Rama. Thus, after expounding the greatness of chanting the holy names of the Lord, Sri Sai Baba gave Sri Vishnu Sahasranama to Shama. We also understood from the response given by Shama to Sri Sai Baba that he was not willing to accept this book as it belongs to the Ramadasi, the ill-tempered one. Also, he felt that he, being a rustic villager, would not be able to pronounce the Sanskrit words with right connotations. In the book Shirdi Sai Baba, one of the ardent devotees of Sri Sai Baba, by named Anna Sahib Gavankar, has narrated the perspective of Shama in this regard. This is not quoted in Sri Sai SATCHARITRA, so let us listen to it now. Though Shama addresses Sri Sai Baba as Deva, his conversation with Sri Sai Baba used to be very casual and colloquial. So Shama, in an angry tone, spoke to Sri Sai Baba thus, Deva, what are you doing? You never had any stomachache, and you lied that you have a pain in your stomach and sent the Ramadasi to buy the senna pots from the market. Then, as soon as he went out of the masjid, you stole his book. So, in the first place, you lied, and then you stole his Vishnu Sahasranama and gave it to me. Is this a trait of a great saint? Are you not cheating? Whereas the heart of Sri Sai Baba, which is softer than the wax, is filled with love and mercy on his devotees. So, for the sake of redeeming Shama from the cycle of birth and death, the Supreme Lord Sri Sai Baba was even prepared to lie and steal, says the author Gavankar. There was no need for Sri Sai Maharaj to lie or to steal, but he dramatized it so that the gist of this divine sport, that is, the significance of chanting the Lord's name and Sri Vishnu Sahasranama, will get underscored, and everyone, including Shama, would perceive its greatness. We shall now listen to an incident related to a great saint, Sri Eknath Maharaj, and this has been mentioned by Sri Hemat Panji in Sri Sai SATCHARITRA, which has connections with the above Leela. Sri Eknath's residence is situated in the village named Paitan in the state of Maharashtra. Every day, holy scriptures were read at Sri Eknath Maharaj's house, whereas his neighbor never followed any rituals that must be practiced by a Brahmin. He always remained unclean, never performed even the Sandhya, and indulged in evil actions. He was a moneylender and had set up a shop to carry on his business of giving loans to poor people and survived with the interest that he charged on that loan amount. He never bothered to listen to the reading of the Holy Scriptures, so he never even was interested to visit Sri Eknath Maharaj. But Sri Eknath Maharaj felt pity on him and thought, though he was born in a high caste, his life is being wasted. Therefore, Sri Eknath wanted to avert this situation, hence invited him to his house and gave him Sri Vishnu Sahasranama, though he refused to take it. He made him to commit to learn at least one sloka at a time. Sri Eknath Maharaj taught him the right posture to sit while chanting the scriptures. First day, he was asked to chant the sloka 10 times. Then, the next day, Sri Eknath made him chant the second sloka. This continued, and slowly the person got persuaded to chant the slokas on his own and was also interested to learn the meanings of these slokas. Thus, Sri Eknath Maharaj forced Sri Vishnu Sahasranama upon him and protected his life. Here we are using the word protected because in the later years this person was afflicted with disease and was on his deathbed. Still, he kept on chanting Sri Vishnu Sahasranama until he breathed his last. It is evident that he must have got liberated owing to his remembrance of God at the time of his death. So, devotees, the saints, to redeem their devotees, bestow their grace upon them by giving them this holy Sri Vishnu Sahasranama. Similar incident is also seen in the life of Swami Samarth. He gave Sri Vishnu Sahasranama to one of his devotees for the sake of uplifting his spiritual life. There was a person by name Sri Srinivas Narayan residing at Sholapur. He was known as Tatya Sahib Khadgaonkar, as he belonged to the region Khadgaon. While he was just 1.5 years old, he had the blessing to sit on the lap of Swami Samarth. An ardent devotee by named Sundarabai Shirsagar was serving Swami Samarth very diligently, and her grandson was this Tatya Sahib Khadgaonkar. Hence, he got the blessings of sitting on the lap of Swami Samarth, widely known as Swami Akalkot Maharaj, who is considered as the incarnation of Lord Dattatreya. Once, a person from Indore visited Akalkot. He brought sandals made of leather and offered it to Swami Samarth. Swami Samarth wore those padukas and walked back and forth for almost 30 minutes. Then he removed it and gave a gentle slap on the cheeks of Sundarabai. This small baby and another fervent devotee by named Balappa were all blessed with these loving slaps. After which Swami Samarth gave it to Sundarabai and instructed her to give it to this small child, Tatya Sahib Khadgaonkar. Thus, he was blessed to receive the holy padukas of Swami Samarth. After few years, he completely forgot about it, and as he grew up, he participated in the freedom struggle, and at various circumstances, his life was saved by Swami Samarth. Those leelas are narrated in the book The Devotee's Experiences of Swami Samarth. After many years, when Swami Samarth met Tatya Sahib Kadgaonkar, he recalled about the Padukas, also handed over Sri Vishnu Sahasranama to him and directed him thus: "You have already kept the Padukas locked in a cupboard. Along with that, worship even this Sri Vishnu Sahasranama." From then, Tatya Sahib Kadgaonkar's spiritual progress was rapid. To conclude, many saints have imparted the significance of Sri Vishnu Sahasranama to their devotees. Listeners, getting back to the original thread, now the Ramadasi would return to Dwarakamayi and how skillfully Sri Sai Baba would handle the situation and make him understand the reason of enacting this divine sport will be discussed in the next episode. Bow to Sri Sai. Peace be to all. Om Sai Ram.